Now you start talking about mesh counts, and this is kind of one of those. I have a PDF on that I can send you. If you email me, I'll send it to you, and I go through basically the meshes from 13 all the way to 400 of the recommended art or vector files on black garments, on it, from top to bottom. But a couple of things that we're going to discuss right here. Basically, you can start all the way down at 13, go up to 400. And they'll go higher than that even, but it's not applicable to our industry. Basically, the real high end is going to be for like 4-color process and 65 line halftone or higher. Then you're going to do like a 156 is a great mesh for a lot of vector type of work. We're going to talk a lot about anywhere from 230 to 300, and we're going to talk about this magic mesh, this 8370. Anybody know what that first number means? The 83 or the 110 or what that means?
It's the mesh per.
It's the threads per inch, yeah. And so under a microscope, theoretically, if you counted, there'd be 86 threads in that 1 inch. Anybody know what the second number is when they go slash?
Size of the thread.
Size of the thread, it's the thread diameter. That's a 70 micron thread, or it used to be referred to as an S thread. It's a smaller thread. And what does that have to do with anything? Remember, we're talking about this. If I make my finger smaller, what's that do to my open area? Opens it up. So a lot of the textured inks that we're going to work with now, we need more open areas, because ultimately, whether it's water-based, high-density ink, it's a bunch of solids suspended in a fluid of some sort, water or resin or whatever, and that wad of solids has to pass through those holes. So if those holes are too small, that won't pass through. That's why the easy one is why you have to run like a 40 or a 60 with glitter, because when you run glitter, it gets hung up. Well, really, that's what glasols and water-based and all that. It's full of pigments and other stuff that's floating, and if it won't go through the holes, you won't be able to print it. So kind of some of the smaller thread, it's not new, but all of a sudden it's kind of catching fire. People are paying attention. And we've been using that small thread at the 83 level for a lot of our thick and textured inks. So as we move on to the press here, I wanted people to kind of understand the difference in some of the mesh we're using and why this works so well. Because if you run back to home and you buy a quart of high density so-and-so and you do exactly what we say, but you put it on a 110 mesh, it won't work. You'll struggle with it because the threads are too fat, the open area is not big enough. So it makes it really tough to make it work. So those were kind of the key pieces and parts before we get on press. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? So as for the small micron stuff, I know they make also 100 micron, but I think the average or the standard is like a 120, 130 micron, but you want a smaller thread so that the inks will pass through on those. We talked about the 230 and 300. I'm going to pass around these. Actually, as we move on to the press, if you want to just thumb through this stuff, we're going to cover a lot of these different things. Basically, we're going to do some real soft hand printing with plastisol. We're going to do a lot of different textures and combinations with those. We might mix in some water-based as well. They're doing a water-based seminar downstairs, so I don't want to get too far into that at all. But ultimately, the thing that's real hot right now with people is they want to put their hands on it. Whether there's no hand feel or super soft, or there's an edge or a texture. We're not the only ones doing it now. Our customers now are the ones going into the department stores and putting your hands on it. It's always been that way for kids. That's why glitters and like HD clears and gels are so popular with kids, because it's always been that with kids. Give them something to put their hands on. Now it's with adults too, and it's kind of what we call like even an anti-texture, where we're actually not feeling the image at all. So